So today is Menopause Awareness Day, and I thought it was appropriate to maybe talk about my experience as I'm officially menopausal now at 41 years old. So pretty young to have gone through menopause, and my experience was that I kind of didn't know it was happening because no one seems to talk about it, and it's not something we get sat down and told about the same way we do maybe when we're in our teens and we get told about expecting our period for the first time. We get a lot of talk about that, but then no one really tells you what happens when menopause happens. My thinking was just like, oh yeah, we just stop getting our periods when we're in our 50s and that's that. And that's probably most women's attitude towards menopause because we don't know any different. And you don't worry about it. It's like, it's going to happen then. But sometimes it happens earlier, and even if it happens in your 50s, it's probably good to know what to expect and kind of look out for the signs, because some women have a pretty bad time through perimenopause and menopause. Everyone has a different experience. It's just like when you get pregnant, each woman has a different experience. Some float through it, some have a terrible time. Menopause is the same. And so yeah, there's also something I learned is there's 3 stages of menopause. So I mean, pre-menopause is just when you're basically normal having your periods between your teens and whatever point you get to when you start to transition into perimenopause, which is basically like the years leading up to when you actually are officially menopausal. So perimenopause can last, I don't know, any amount of time up until a few years, and generally a lot of women don't even know that's what they're experiencing. They just sort of might feel a bit more moody at times, they might not be sleeping well, their cycles might be a little bit all over the place, and there's plenty of other, some people experience muscle joint aches and pains, hot flushes. Yeah, there's lots of signs that might tell you that you're going through perimenopause, and it might not just be that you're experiencing all these things just because. A lot of women don't feel themselves. They start to feel like maybe they're feeling a little bit depressed, and you might go see your doctor about that, and you might get put on antidepressants, and really what's happening is your body is changing and hormones are changing, and really that's the underlying issue. So yeah, there's a lot of things that change, and it's always good maybe if you're experiencing a few different things to go and talk to your GP and to find a GP that's done extra training around menopause and menopause treatment options, because most GPs, they don't get taught hardly anything about menopause really, and it's a bit of a sort of tricky topic, I guess. If they don't know a lot about it, then they might be hesitant to, really recognize what's happening or even prescribe you anything if that's what you feel you need. So definitely seek out someone who's well educated around menopause and is up to date with all the recent research. So anyway, a bit about my experience, because I can only talk about my experience. Everyone's different. I feel like I have been a little bit fortunate, supposedly, I guess, in that I don't feel like I've had an absolutely terrible time, and really I kind of went through perimenopause without even knowing for a few years. When I was 38 is when I experienced my first hot flush, and when my cycle started to go a bit wacky, and I did think regarding to my cycles, like I was a bit unsure as to what's going on, but at the time we were actually trying to get pregnant, so there was that as well. From 35 we tried to get pregnant, and it just wasn't happening, and looking back now, obviously I was pretty much at the end of my fertile years, so it was probably not going to happen, and we didn't want to go down the route of this is one of the things that happens, brain fog, forgetting basic words. It's all part of perimenopause and menopause, but yeah, we just didn't want any fertility treatment. So yeah, we tried all the natural things and nothing was really working. So what was I saying? So yeah, my cycles. So yeah, my cycles were a bit all over. I mean, I've never had the most regular cycle, but I had a bit of a awareness as to how my body was working with my cycles. So yeah, I just basically get these periods that lasted like the usual 5 days, but then for a week after that, there'd just be spotting really for like a whole week. So I'd have these 12-day periods, which were not my norm. And that sort of happened on and off, and then it became a bit more of the norm. And no one really, I went to see my GP and like, she didn't really have any answers. She just didn't think anything was wrong, just sort of did the usual pregnancy test and whatever else, and nothing else was spoken of it. And it was only really about a year ago or so that the word perimenopause came up with a different GP. I've got a good GP now that I like, and a bit on top of things. But prior to that, no one had even suggested that could be related. So yeah, my sort of perimenopausal phase was mostly I was experiencing hot flashes. So they were very infrequent though. I would get like maybe a week where I'd get a few, and then I wouldn't get any for a couple of months, and then they'd come back. And to be honest, like when I first got them, it was summertime. So I remember sitting in the kitchen and thinking, oh, it suddenly got really hot in here, that's weird. Didn't think anything of it. I just thought the room heated up by like 10 degrees in like a second, which is very unrealistic, but I just remember thinking that was a bit strange. But anyway, it was only after it happened a few times, and then it also happened at a time where I was almost like cooler and shouldn't have been warm at all, and I was like, how is this happening? It's a bit odd. So when it started happening like outside of what might have been a normal just feeling hot, that's when I started to sort of Google hot flashes and try and figure out what was going on, because I knew about hot flashes, but I just thought it was something that happened to you when you were older. I don't even know if I linked it to menopause at that time, or if it was just something I knew that older women experienced. So yeah, that's when I started thinking, oh, maybe it's like a bit of a hormonal thing that's going on with me. And yeah, but this went on, this is probably about 2 years worth of like getting these random hot flashes and my cycle being weird before I actually really got some answers and my hormones were showing up like because I was having iron issues as well on top of that, so that's a whole other story. So at one point they tested my hormones as well, and I remember seeing the results and looking at the range of my estrogen, and it was sitting in like a menopausal range, which I thought was weird because no one had said anything about it. Like it wasn't flagged really at that point, and it was only like months later or a year later when I hadn't had a period for a few months, and then that's when the menopause word came up with my GP. But so yeah, my whole perimenopausal phase was just, I don't know, I didn't really know what was going on. Basically, it was very confusing. It was a confusing time. So yeah, I was having issues with iron levels as well at one point, around sort of being 35, well, between 35 and 40 really. I went through this phase, which was not a nice thing to experience, especially as a personal trainer and someone who'd always been motivated to exercise and be healthy and feel strong and fit. That was like who I was. And I can't remember exactly when it started, but it was around the time when I was somewhere between 33 and 35. I just suddenly lost all motivation to train and exercise, and I used to plan a workout and go to do the workout, and I would start the workout, and within the first set of me doing the exercise I was doing, I would just feel completely deflated, zero energy. I'd almost feel lightheaded, and I would just have to stop doing what I was doing and give up on the workout. So that started happening, and it took me a little while. to, try and figure out what it was, I just thought maybe I was less motivated because I'd moved from a shared gym space into my own personal training gym studio. So it was just me, and I was just training on my own with no one around. And I remember at the time I kind of put it down to maybe that. Initially I was fine. For a few months I was training on my own, there was no worry, but then I got to a point where I started to just not feel like I had the energy and not feel motivated. And yeah, I just thought maybe it's because there's no one around me and I just, need to be in a shared space. So then I signed up to a gym and I did train there, but I remember it only lasted a few weeks, and then again just didn't have the motivation to go walk to the gym. It was only a 5-minute walk from my studio, and it just didn't feel like I wanted to go there and didn't feel like I wanted to train. So then I went and got my blood tested and I was low on iron, so I thought, oh, maybe that's it, maybe I'm just low on iron. And so I worked on that and sort of got my iron back to normal, but then for some reason for a few years my iron was sort of weirdly up and down. Sometimes it would be high and then sometimes it would be low, and then I'd be on and off iron tablets, and I don't know, looking back I wonder if this was maybe more related to perimenopause. I don't know, it's a bit of a mystery, but motivation is definitely something that you can experience a lack of, and also obviously your energy levels as well can be quite affected. So yeah, it wasn't a good time for me to experience not being able to train like I used to, and being a personal trainer, you kind of feel like you're a bit of an imposter trying to motivate people to train themselves and help them train when you kind of feel like you're very much lacking that yourself, and also not really knowing why, not really understanding why. So that was that was hard for me, and who knows, I mean, obviously things have changed now. I have no worries, I have no problem with training. I follow my own program that I do for my clients online, or my online clients, and yeah, actually pretty motivated with that, which is good because exercise is one of the most important things you can do through perimenopause and menopause, especially strength training. So I'm very grateful that I've been able to get that back and keep on top of it. So now it's been, it's been 13 months since I had my last period. So once you've gone through a full year of no period, then you're menopausal. So I've gone from that perimenopausal phase into menopause, so it's a bit of a mystery as to how the next few years will go. No one really knows what they're going to experience, whether it's going to get better or maybe worse for a bit. My hot flashes have definitely got worse, as in more frequent. The intensity has kind of stayed the same, but yeah, now every day I get hot flashes, day and night. So they just come whenever and lasts about a minute and then they sort of go away. Some things can seem to sort of maybe trigger them. I notice if I have a drink, like an alcoholic drink, generally I'll get one within like a couple of minutes or so, within 5 minutes of having my first few sips. That'll often just trigger one. Sometimes like an embarrassing situation or something will kind of like make you go into a hot flash, which I guess sort of, you kind of experience that as a non-menopausal woman as well to a degree, but yeah, it just brings on a proper hot flash. And also just being in a hot environment, if you're in a car and the heater's on, and that can sometimes bring it on as well. So there's a few things that'll bring it on, but they'll just happen randomly without anything triggering them really. And the worst of it is basically at night. So definitely my sleep has not been what it used to be. I used to be a very, very good sleeper. I would fall asleep anywhere. It was always a joke in the family that, I could fall asleep standing up. And I'll often fall asleep in front of the TV if I'm watching something, which my husband gets quite annoyed at, because we try and watch a series together, and within like half an hour of the first episode I'm nodding off, and then he's got to stop and wait for me to start again the next day and figure out where we were where I fell asleep, which is understandably quite frustrating for both of us really. But yeah, so definitely more tired throughout the day. I'm definitely snoozing more in the morning, which I never used to do. I used to be someone who woke up and I'd be like get up, start the day awake, no worries. Morning's my favorite time of the day, which it still is, but I definitely feel a bit groggier most mornings. So that's just because I'm waking up multiple times in the night with the hot flash. So you basically go to sleep, and then next thing you know, you're awake, you feel like it's 100 degrees in the room, your skin's sort of clammy, for want of a better word, and yeah, you just feel, you know, a bit irritated as well that you've woken up and you feel hot and flustered, and then you've got to get the duvet off and stick one leg out, and then it's always a nice feeling to feel that cold cotton on your on your leg, the sort of top of the duvet that's much cooler than what the underside is. So yeah, generally you'll put one leg out and maybe take the top half off a bit, and then try and go back to sleep, which you might do quickly, you may not. And if you do, sometimes then you'll wake up again and you'll actually be cold, so you're going to put the duvet back on, or a hot flash will wake you up again. So I reckon I must wake up about 3 or 4 times in the night with a hot flash. And for some reason, especially the past few weeks, every morning between 3:30 and 4:30, somewhere in that range, I'll wake up and I'll be awake for at least 10 to 30 minutes. And I'll just be like lying awake, which is really annoying, especially for me, because often some mornings I've got to wake up at like 4:45, 5 anyway for work. So I might wake up at this time. I tend to always check the time just out of habit, because I'm like, is it 5 minutes before my alarm's going off? Is it only midnight? So I'll just tap my phone and see it's like 3:30 or 4:30, and I'm like, okay, try to go back to sleep. Generally I'll be awake for a little while, then I'll eventually fall asleep, but I'll probably only be asleep for half an hour, and then I've got to get up. So that's pretty frustrating, and I don't know why it's always in this 3:30 to 4:30 in the morning time frame. So yeah, I'm not getting quality sleep. And I mean, as most people know, when we sleep, that's when we regenerate ourselves and everything's repairing, neurologically, muscular, everything's basically working to repair us and get us going for the next day. So if you're missing out on that, you're not going to feel great. So definitely feeling more foggy and, a bit slower in my thinking some mornings, not every morning, but some are worse than others. This morning actually is a bad morning. You probably tell, I don't think I probably look my best today, but that's okay. Not one for makeup, so don't try and hide it, it's what it is. Some mornings are worse than others, and I do have to keep pretty sharp for work, just dealing with my clients and making sure they're moving well and making sure I'm paying attention to what they're doing and being able to think on the fly if they come in and they've got a bit of a sore this or a sore that, and I've got to change what I planned. I've got to be a little bit sharper than what I feel like I am some mornings, but I think I get away with it okay. I'm sure you guys will let me know if I don't. So tiredness, grogginess, brain fog, all of that's part of it as well. So the other fun thing that I've noticed, which most people probably don't like to talk about, but most people know me that I probably don't mind talking about anything. And I think it's important to talk about some things, because particularly around these issues, people feel like they can't talk about it and they've got to suffer alone, and that it's embarrassing, and that they don't want to tell their friends that this happened or that they're feeling this way. Some people don't want to talk to their friends or family, which I find quite sad and unfortunate. Whereas I will definitely speak out and talk about stuff, because you never know who you're talking to, whether they share a similar experience, and they might be quite grateful that you brought it up and you guys can talk about it together, or they might just be someone who wants to support you through it, and saying something will help them be able to provide that support. One of the things I've noticed is something that they call urge incontinence, I think. Which doesn't mean I'm weeing myself. It's just this phenomenon that happens. Like, you can be completely fine and going along with your day, or you can be like out going to the shops and then you're driving home, all good, get the shopping out of the car, get to the door, and as soon as you get to the front door, all of a sudden you feel like you're going to pee your pants, like you need to go to the bathroom like ASAP. So that's never really been a thing for me. I've actually been pretty good at holding my bladder if I need to. So yeah, I think the first time I noticed a change was actually because I surf quite a lot, and I tend to have sort of long surf sessions, longer than the norm, I guess. Anyway, anywhere between 3 to 4 hours is my average time in the water per session, just because I have to drive 35 minutes to get there and suit up, and you know, I want to make it worthwhile, especially if it's fun. If it's not so fun, it might be shorter than that. But so I spend a bit of time in the water, and I noticed that normally, often I would not need the toilet at all while I was surfing. Sometimes I might need to pee once, and I just go in my wetsuit. Most surfers do anyway. But then I started noticing, gee, like I'm only like half an hour into the session and I already need to pee. And then sometimes it would be like, oh, I actually need to pee again. Like while I'm in the water, I have to go twice. And that started happening, and I was like, oh, this is a bit weird. I'm like, I'm not spending any longer. I haven't drunk any more than normal. Anyway, so that was the first thing I noticed. And then I sort of started noticing, I'm like, oh yeah, actually at home I am peeing more frequently. And then sometimes I'd have times like, there's only 1 or 2 times where I had to get up during the night to pee. That actually was, I think it was because I hadn't gone to the toilet just before bed that time. So that was explained. But definitely find now I wake up, and as soon as I stand up, it's almost like gravity just like wants to get me to the bathroom quicker than normal. So I'm often rushing to the bathroom, you know, trying to squeeze my legs together, which I've never done before. So yeah, that's a thing. And yeah, you just got to basically plan around it. So what I generally try and do now, especially when I go surfing, is before I go to the break I'm going to surf. Some of them have toilets, some of them don't, so it depends where I'm going to be surfing, but I'll always just stop at the toilet that's at the first break, go to the loo and then check that break out, and then I might drive a minute down the road to the next break if that's where I'm going to surf. But regardless, I'll try and just like go to the toilet before I even suit up, because actually the last surf I had a couple of days ago, I almost peed in my wetsuit because before I got into the water, because I had a short amount of time and I was just like, nah, I'm just gonna go suit up straight away, skip the loo, and I'll just pee in the ocean. And yeah, I think I started peeing before I even got into the water, but you can't really tell when you've got a wetsuit on, and it wasn't like I was, you know, letting everything go. So yeah, you just got to work out strategies, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely a thing. So something else I linked to perimenopause and menopause that I thought was more about your age, like your number, is the actual physical process of aging. So I'm pretty sure that, because basically when you go through menopause, your skin gets a bit drier, you lose your collagen, which is what keeps us looking younger, so your skin gets a little bit looser, a few more wrinkles, and I definitely started to notice when I was about 38, like I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, I'm actually looking a bit different to what I used to look. And you know, I was like, oh, my face is kind of looking a bit older. And it just sort of, like back then it didn't dawn on me at all. It's actually literally just been the past few weeks where I sort of realized it's actually linked to like menopause. Because some people age a lot slower, some age quicker, you know, there's other factors as well. But yeah, so I definitely noticed that I'm aging more now. The hair has always been like, I've got my first grey hair when I was 21, so I don't think that's really linked to the whole menopause thing. Maybe it's sped it up the past couple of years, I don't know, but certainly my skin is looser. Even my tummy skin's like a little bit like looser, not as firm, I guess. And yeah, obviously my face is a bit more wrinkles, and I've got a lovely tan from my surfing because I wear a cap because I'm sun smart, and it's got a clip. So I've always got this weird white thing here, which is all to do with surfing and the wetsuit tan, so that's lovely. But yeah, obviously, you know, a bit more age around my neck and face and everything else. So that's something I've noticed as well, which happens, and I'm not one for like, you know, I'm not one for trying to stop the natural process of living. So I do what I can. I make sure I moisturize and use natural stuff, and always try and look after my skin in the ocean. I wear lots of zinc and a cap, and always cover myself up in summer as well when I'm surfing. But obviously, you know, I still get my sun hours as well when I'm at home. Yeah, because obviously vitamin D is important, even more so now. That's another thing. I take vitamin D every day just to help with my bone structure, because osteoporosis is a high risk for developing when you go into menopause, and I guess particularly early menopause as well. I think you're at a higher risk, but luckily I've always done strength training, even though I had that phase where I didn't really do much. I've been strength training quite consistently now for a few years. So yeah, that all helps with your bone density. Another common thing that you lose, and I definitely have felt that I've experienced this, and again, at first I wasn't sure why. I thought maybe this just happens as you get older as well, or when you've been married for a long time, or whatever other reasons there might be. But yeah, my libido is like practically non-existent these days. So yeah, that's obviously, has an impact on you as a person, but then also has an impact on your partner, and then has an impact on your relationship, because your partner might question, well, don't find me attractive anymore, what's going on? They have all these concerns and issues that come up for them, and it's hard for you to really understand and explain what's going on inside you, and it doesn't really make sense. And then so that's a big struggle as well. So I guess that's all just hormone related, and I don't know what the answer is, to be honest. So with that, I guess I haven't really looked into any treatment options for menopause, just because I guess I feel like, it's not the most terrible experience I've had in my life. So I feel like it's manageable at the moment, although I have to say the sleep issue is probably the one that affects me the most, and it's only really got worse in the past few weeks, maybe the past month or so. My sleep's been affected consistently. It used to be just sporadically, but now it's pretty consistent. So I don't know, we'll see what the next few months bring, as to whether I feel the need to look into options to try and balance things out. But yeah, I'm usually one who tries to just not do any interventions unless it's absolutely necessary. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So I guess my main reason for doing this video was to just bring awareness around what to expect, to try and recognize the signs of perimenopause, because a lot of women feel like they sort of lose themselves, or feel like they're going crazy, or feel like they're really mentally impacted, and maybe they don't know why. A lot of people question their relationship that they're in, or their work that they're doing. Some people kind of start to feel like maybe they're not in the right job and they want to change careers, or they're not satisfied in what they're doing anymore. So they have that struggle going on, and sometimes that can be related to perimenopause as well. So you get a lot of people who just question what's going on within them through that time, and if you don't really know why, or recognize that it could be due to this, you could be making some rash decisions. You could be putting a lot of added pressure on yourself when it's the time that you should really be doing the opposite. So yeah, basically, if you are experiencing any of these sort of symptoms, I guess, that you don't feel is your norm or part of how you have been feeling, and there's no real reason as to why you're feeling this way, then definitely seek out, talk to your GP, but maybe seek out a GP who specializes in menopause or is educated post-training as to like what the treatment options are, what the symptoms are, and actually understands menopause. Because yeah, you definitely be doing yourself a favour by doing that. And talk to your friends and family, you know, maybe open up about it, talk to your partner if you've got one. I'm lucky in that my husband is very, very supportive and will always do whatever he can to understand what's going on, and he's very compassionate and yeah, sort of understands if I'm not feeling great, or you know, whenever I'm getting a hot flush, he kind of knows when I'm getting them now because I'm usually taking stuff off. Yeah, so hopefully if your partner's understanding, you can feel comfortable talking to them and just opening up about it. And you know, if you, like I was unfortunate in that I lost my mom when I was 35, so, and prior to that age, you know, menopause wasn't really a topic that was on my mind, so I never got an opportunity to talk to her about it. I have no idea of when she went through menopause or what her experience was, so yeah, and I don't ever talk to about what I'm experiencing. So if you're fortunate enough to still have your mom around, maybe just speak to her and, you know, tell her how you're feeling and what's going on, and hopefully she can, you know, help to guide you and share her experience, because I'm sure most women who are at that menopausal age now, or sort of later on in menopause, probably never spoke about it. You know, that was a time when talking about these things almost wasn't acceptable or wasn't recognised, or there was a fear around it, and women felt like if they did bring it up or mention it, that they would be less respected or disregarded, or you know, not respected in the workplace, well, as much, although that's another story, I guess. Back then women probably weren't as respected in the workplace as what they're trying to be now. Yeah, so you never know, you know, if you bring up this conversation with your mom, maybe she'll appreciate it and she'll be able to open up and share her experience for the first time, potentially. So if you have anything you'd like to share, or you just want to have a little conversation around your own experience, feel free to comment. I'll obviously respond, and I'm sure other people will want to respond as well. Maybe we can open up a conversation around it, especially if you're someone who doesn't feel like you have anyone to talk to about it. Yeah, feel free to leave a comment and we can chat. Because I definitely feel like there needs to be more conversation around it. More recognition, more understanding, more compassion, more options for people to actually talk about their experience and also seek help and get the right help, because there's a lot of women who are not getting the right help because it's not well enough recognised, I guess, within the GP world. There's only a small amount of GPs who've taken the time to understand menopause and have a better understanding and be up to date with the research and the treatment options that are available. So hopefully that changes over time, because I think it's important to look after all our well-beings, men and women, and certainly around mental health there obviously needs to be more recognition, more compassion, more understanding in general.